G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to IL-2 with Mags, and welcome aboard the Bell P-39 Aerocobra. This is one of the new aircraft added in the latest patch and the release of Battle of Kuban. It's a fantastic aircraft. It has a couple of interesting little things about it, but we'll get into those in just a moment. Before we do, I sort of tried to show this off in the A20 video that I did not that long ago, but look at the windscreen as we fly through the clouds. I absolutely love this effect. This is brilliant. So anyways, we're just getting ready to commence our attack. Now, we are not in multiplayer for this particular flight. This is the new IL-2 career mode. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm probably going to do a far more in-depth video on this very, very soon. But needless to say, it's a full dynamically generated campaign mode. In this particular mission, we have been tasked with attacking a convoy of trucks that is moving from a nearby German depot up to the German front lines, resupplying them. But while we are to attack them and destroy as many as we possibly can, that isn't actually the core of our mission. The attack is actually a feint to draw out a number of Luftwaffe fighters from a nearby German-controlled airfield. Once those fighters show up, we are to engage and destroy the fighters. Now, this attack in particular is both to remove the number of aircraft that are available in that particular airfield, and thus in this particular section of the front line, and also to keep the fighters from that airfield occupied, while another Soviet squadron performs a bombing raid on their own target, so that there are no aircraft available to intercept the bombers. They're all tied up here. This is just a small sample or example of what is actually going on in the campaign mode, and I am going to have to do a video on it. Now I'm just sitting here thinking about it, because it is kind of fantastic. So anyways, the P-39, how does it fly? I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details on this particular one, because I'm still learning the aircraft myself, but it flies really nice. I was initially a little nervous about jumping into it, because it is a significantly different aircraft to most that you will find. One of the major factors is, of course, that the engine in the Aerocobra is not mounted in the nose. It's actually mounted in the midsection of the aircraft behind the pilot, and the prop itself is driven by a long drive shaft attached to a gearbox that actually drives a propeller assembly. Although this has led to some rather interesting learning experiences with the aircraft. The Aerocobra does not like rapid throttle changes. If you throttle up too quickly, the engine will just break itself, which I worked out very quickly on my first fly out, and have been seeing people in multiplayer repetitively break the aircraft over and over again, doing exactly the same thing. I was a little curious as to why this was, so I looked into it. The answer, as it turns out, was actually rather obvious. Because the engine is not directly mated to the propeller and instead goes through a long drive shaft that's around a third of the length of the aircraft and into the propeller assembly, a rapid change in RPM in the engine can torque load both the drive shaft and the propeller assembly, either destroying the propeller assembly itself directly or severely damaging it, or it has, in some cases, actually twisted the drive shaft completely off the assembly in the engine. To avoid this, gentle hands are all that's needed, but I love the fact that this is modelled in such detail, and it brings into mind an aircraft that's coming up in the next expansion, Operation Baseplate, which is of course the Messerschmitt 262. Now, everyone is hyped as hell about the fact that the 262 is coming, but the 262 is an aircraft that is notorious for its dislike of any kind of fast throttle movements. High-speed throttle movements in the 262 will cause the engines to quite literally explode in some cases. If they've managed to model something similar in the Aerocobra already, a mechanical issue with the aircraft that is easily avoided if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, can put you in a pretty nasty spot, I'm going to love seeing exactly how the 262 performs and how many people have interesting issues trying to get it off the ground. So outside of that, what else is interesting with the Aerocobra? Well, it's actually quite difficult to get its guns on target. Trying to lead them is quite the challenge because it has 3 different gun sizes. The nose obviously has the infamous 37mm cannon, which is actually better than I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be an extremely low velocity shell that would be difficult to aim. Now, it is, but it's nowhere near as severe as I was actually anticipating. Next to the nose, you have the twin 50 caliber machine guns. These are, well, we've already got 50 cals in the game, they operate pretty much exactly the same way as I would expect. But this particular model of the Aero Cobra also has 30 caliber machine guns in the wings, so you've got 3 different weapon sizes in the one weapons platform. As you can imagine, this does make things a little bit of a pain in the ass to aim. If you try and lead on the 37, the 50s and the 30s are going to go all over the place. If you try and aim on the 50s, the 37 will miss, and so on and so on. Now you can split your weapons controls so you can fire only one separately. I actually forgot to configure the guns before this particular flyout, so all of my guns are tied to the one trigger, and I was trying to aim a lot on just the 37. Which of course led to a lot of misses on the 50s and the 30s, although when you do hit with that 37, it is effective. So another thing with the guns in the aircraft, the weapons in the wings are optional. You come standard with the 30 cals, and you do have an upgrade option that will allow you to stick additional ammunition on the 30 cals, giving you a little bit more endurance in combat, although it does add weight to the aircraft, which does reduce its turning and direct combat performance. However, there is also the option to pull the 30s completely out of the wings, which I didn't do on this flyout. In hindsight, maybe I should have, although I did nearly run out of ammunition here, so maybe it was a good idea that I didn't. Regardless, you can pull them out, and it will lighten the weight in the wings, adjust the wing loading, and the aircraft will perform more favourably as a dogfighter when you actually do this. So that's really all I'm going to go into about the P39 in this particular video. As I said, I am going to do another one once I'm a little bit more comfortable with the aircraft and I've got it under control. I will say the cockpit is absolutely amazing, and the ejection sequence for the aircraft is fantastic. Obviously the Aero Cobra, to get in the aircraft, it has a car-style door that you get in. You can wind the window down, which is kind of cool, but the doors cannot be opened in flight. If you need to bail out of the aircraft, you actually detonate a set of explosive bolts that blow the entire door off the side of the aircraft, and then you jump through the hole, which is kind of fantastic. Back onto the campaign mode, and well, for this particular flyout I got 3 kills, and they weren't overly difficult. I probably could have taken the aircraft out faster if I had been aiming for just the 30s and 50s and had the 37 on a separate trigger, rather than trying to lead with the 37 all the time. But they weren't overly difficult kills to get. That said, I have run into AI in the campaign mode that has absolutely kicked my ass, and it seems to be part of how the campaign mode is structured as well. These pilots aren't just AI, well, the AI aircraft aren't just AI. If you go in and turn markers on and fly these around, you actually find that they're all named, and if you check the campaign map, you can actually see which pilots are assigned to which squadrons. And they all have names as well. Your allies have names, your enemies have names, and they all are assigned to, well, they're generic, made-up pilots. But the pilots themselves exist within the campaign mode. They're not just something that is spawned in and spawned back out. And each of them has an experience level. The higher level difficulty AIs are actually more experienced pilots that fly as squadron leaders in opposing squadrons, while new pilots will generally be on the lower AI settings. This was obviously a flight of relatively inexperienced pilots, although having said that, we did have a flight of 4 aircraft. There were 4 responders when we attacked the convoy. We got all of them, but we did lose 2 of our own. Only myself and I believe it was number 2 in the flight, actually made it out. The flight lead and our 4th were both shot down. The other really cool part about the campaign mode is this is counted as well. At the start of this flight, my squadron had 10 pilots and 10 aircraft available to it. 2 of our pilots and 2 of our aircraft were shot down, so we are down to 8 and 8. However, my wingman took a little bit of damage as well. Nothing too major, we were still able to make it home, but the aircraft was not fit for combat once we returned. So the squadron was at 8 pilots but only 7 aircraft strength. Now this damaged aircraft will not be available until after repairs have been done, which may take a couple of days, and days are simulated inside of the campaign mode. Likewise, we will not just get new resupplies, we will have to wait till we are issued replacement aircraft and pilots, which can take some time. I'm definitely going to have to do a video and get in depth with how the campaign mode works, but I hope this has been a nice little look at it and a nice little look at the P39. Anyways, ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, remember to click that like button, share and subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time, take care.